and in working with and innovators. And I will invite each one to introduce themselves to you. We agreed we shall begin with ladies first. And so to ask that you introduce by name, what it is you do professionally and a daily. And since we are in week 7 of 2023, tell us how your week is using the characteristics of an animal.
Sorry, how my week is as a characteristic of an animal. Oh, yes. Wow. Okay, great. I feel like I want to answer with that one first. But okay, thank you so much for having me here. I'm really excited to be here, actually. My name is Rima. I am the founder and CEO of RD Marketing. I'm based at the Sandbox, which is just behind the ISM on Chania Avenue. And yeah, what we do is we help organizations with their marketing. So marketing strategy, how to actually reach your customers and target audience. And what my week has been like so far. Wow. Let's see. This one's maybe a beaver. You know how beavers are, just busy trying to get their house in order and still moving around and doing what they're doing. So I think that's probably what I'd call my week like. But yeah, nice and productive, with a great number of team members. So yeah, I hope that answers.
Great, thank you, Rima, and welcome to the session. Over to you, Stephen. Same question. Your name, what you do on a daily basis as a profession, and in week 7, what animal do you feel most like?
Thank you, Sonia, and thank you, Rima. Stephen Gugu is my name. I do 3 things away from the titles. One is I'm an angel investor, so I make investments to early stage companies, and really fascinated to see the innovations that we have for the R2C program. I'm also a financial advisor, both for projects and for companies. And for that, then we work with entrepreneurs who are looking to raise funding, who are looking to sell their businesses, and we support them in the journey to be able to do that. And of course, all the other advice that comes with that. So we do that under a company called Investia Africa Limited. And through that, we spend a lot of time understanding exactly what's a clear value proposition for the company. Because whenever you want to bring in investors, one of the key things they evaluate around the company is this idea of what's their value proposition, what exactly is different about them, why should we be investing in them, and so forth. And also from the angel investor side of things. I'm also a facilitator, so I work very closely with early stage companies. I train a lot on matters entrepreneurship and finance. So I'm part of the Victoria Ventures team, the co-founder at Victoria Ventures, and we work with entrepreneurs in different entrepreneur support programs. And I'm one of the trainers for the R2C program, and really happy to be here today. In terms of what animal I feel like, week 7 of the year, an attribute, I'd probably go with an octopus, right? Which is also funny enough, it's an animal that if people ask me which animal I think I would be an octopus. And it's really because the octopus has multiple limbs, and it's always trying to, I guess, sort out different things at the same time. I feel like I'm handling a number of things which are moving at different paces. Yeah, I think I'd go with that. And I think also an octopus is quite intelligent in terms of being able to manage the different things it's trying to do. So I'll go with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Rima. Thank you, Stephen. And to everyone, my name is Sonia Rasugu. I'll be the moderator for this session. I work as an independent consultant on organization effectiveness and also on gender equality and social inclusion. I am also a trainer on this project on GESI, gender equality and social inclusion. And so without further ado, I'll just proceed to ask you, Rima, in the work that you do, how do you use the value proposition? What is a value proposition? And how important is it really for those of us here who are researchers and innovators?
Great, thanks for that question. First, I want to start with what is a value proposition? So to break it down into two simple words is the value that you're giving and what are you proposing to the person that you want to purchase, for example, for you, or you want them to buy into what you're doing. So your value proposition is that value that you are proposing, in other words, right? Value propositions are kind of like your statements. You use it for your business, you use it for your marketing, you use it for your companies. It really summarizes, what your consumer should buy or purchase from you. Or like I said, it could be a buy-in for something else as well. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have something to purchase from this person, right? So value proposition is literally what you tell your customer or your investor, because the proposition that you give to your investor, for example, will be slightly different from what you give to your customer. What is that solution to a problem? What problem are you solving? And the value proposition would actually give that. And we use that, I mean, in our day-to-day as a business as well, because when we're telling somebody about what we do, fine, it's marketing that we do and we help with strategy, but how does that impact? Why would an organization, for example, come to us for that marketing strategy? But we can be able to get you to your customer in the most effective and innovative way possible. We can be able to define your customer, right? So understanding that is a major part of marketing strategy. And so when we say it in that way, then the other person or the business that we're trying to reach out to then understands what we're actually proposing as value to them. So I'm hoping that actually kind of breaks it down a little bit in more layman's language.
Okay. Stephen, you described to us your work with as an angel investor and what you hear. So for you, what is the best value proposition you ever heard?
That's a tough one to ask the best value proposition, because it really depends at the end of the day on the kind of company, what they're doing, and so forth. But I would say, and just try to answer that question directly, then to come back a bit. I would say at the end of the day, for me, the best value proposition is a value proposition that is lived, right? That you don't go to, is lived. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Yes. And what I mean by that is often, and I like using this example because I once saw it. It's a company I went to work for, and please don't check my LinkedIn because you might find out which company it is. I went to work for, and they had really good branding. Like I really wanted to go and work in this organization, and I got into the organization. I started working, and because of the value proposition they pitched, how they were sort of like treating their customers, how they were working internally, etc., all the good ones. But then on the other side, when I got in, I was like, what is happening? I can't identify the pitch and what is happening on a day-to-day basis, right? And the reason I say that, I felt as though the marketing team had done a really good job of selling something, but the operations team were not in sync. So they're not doing what the marketing team was doing. And I think the reason why I say that the best value proposition is one that is lived is this idea that customers, when they come and they engage with you as a brand, they'll come because of maybe of the marketing and so forth. But then at some point they get to consume whatever it is you're selling to them, right? And once they consume it, they'll create an impression. And the impression is, it could be one of dissonance, where they feel that these guys say that they're price efficient, they say they're convenient, they say, they sort out your deliveries, they say it's a luxury feel and so forth. And you've seen this whenever you go to some hotels, which are pitched really well. Then you walk in and you're just like, what is happening? The whole luxury thing that I was told that I'm going to relax and quality of service is not there. And so if that dissonance then is there, most customers then just fade away. They won't come back, and they just say, don't go to those guys. And that's because the marketing team and the operations team are not working in sync. So for me, the best value proposition would be one that is lived and the whole organization knows what they're selling and they're working together to be able to deliver that to the final customer. Yeah, I'll stop there. Thanks.
Okay, so if I hear right from you both, the value of the value proposition is to be able to convince the consumers of your product or your research that this is what we are promising to give you. Is that correct? This is our promise to you as consumers of our product. And in this morning, we're talking about, innovation products that are from research to market. Rima, would you agree?
Yes, absolutely. It is a way of actually telling somebody this is what we're going to do for you. So yeah, you're right by saying there's kind of like a promise that we're providing. What is that promise that we live through or live from to provide to you? Yeah.
And
And
keeping
Sonia,
yes, Stephen.
sorry, just to add to that, I mean, and I like the whole idea of the promise. I like differentiating the value proposition from the specifications. So at times when you're someone who's technical, you think it's a specification of the product, that the product can be able to treat your tomatoes, and your tomatoes will be the best red tomatoes because of the chemical composition and so forth. And I like saying that value proposition at the end of the day is what the customer experiences when they use your product. When you like after a month of customers using your product, if you go and ask them, what's your sense? There's some words they use. They'll say that, what, that thing was really effective. In terms of the application of these, when you're sort of like trying to apply it was very easy for us to be able to do it. In terms of how we got the product, it was very cost effective compared to any other products we've used. There's some words they use. And those words at the end of the day is what the customer perceives as the value proposition for what you're selling to them, right? And so there's this aspect that at times I feel like companies can spend so much time selling something to customers. If they don't leave them, the customers don't experience that, and you could as well not have been selling all those different things. So leave the value proposition.
And what would be, I mean, many of the people here are from institutions that do research, they are startups. So where would I go to get tools that helps me to develop this correct value proposition that's more than just about the specifications of my fantastic innovation? Rima.
Thanks. Sonia, one of the things I would say, even before you go to any tool to start using it, is first and foremost, and I love that a lot of them are here from research, any business needs to have that research element. And that means the biggest tool or the biggest way of doing this is through interviewing your potential customers, right? A lot of times the value proposition statement comes from what your customers are saying about your product or your service, right? And we find that that's the biggest way of actually understanding the problem statement, as well as how you're resolving that problem statement from the customer's point of view. So the biggest aspect of when you're getting to your value proposition, or when you're getting to build your business, right, is when you're actually starting to discover about your customers. So you have, like, for example, a few customers or investors for that matter, who are interested, but then you start asking them the specific questions. So what made you interested in our business? What is it that you would like from us? So like, I'm going to say from the point of view of a customer. So I'd say, for example, why would you keep buying XYZ from us? And how is that solving a problem for you? So once you start getting that, then now you can start using it in what we call the value proposition canvas, where you're starting to understand their problems, you're understanding what their fears are, and you're understanding how you're creating that solution and what is the experience. So again, one of the biggest things that we say in marketing is that experience, or the customer experience, is your biggest marketing. So when you're speaking to your customer, start asking those questions. We are shy to ask those questions to our customers, because we're worried that they'll say something that is not like what we want to hear, right? But that's the best way to actually understand, even in your product or your solution or your company, where are we falling short? And if we're falling short, where is it that we need to enhance it such that we enhance our value proposition as well?
Rima, are there tools I can go to as a researcher? Do they have names or processes?
So the one that I mentioned was a value proposition canvas, which I personally use even when we're doing marketing strategies for our customers. But like I said, the biggest one is an interview with your customer. And that just needs a pen and a paper, and then just listening, and not just talking. So because sometimes what happens is, again, in businesses, what happens is you want to sell, And so when you want to sell, you're just saying things to your customer instead of listening and asking the questions. So I know, Sonia, you're looking for a particular tool. And I mentioned that, the value proposition canvas is great, but you can't have a tool if you don't have the information. So as researchers and as people, you have to go and talk to your customers. And so that's the best way of, first of all, gathering the information, because researchers will tell you this as well. If you gather the data, then you can use it and put it into a tool to give you something of mana, of value, right? So maybe a bit of both is what I would recommend. I don't know. Maybe if Steve has a different kind of tool that he probably uses.
Yes.
Yeah.
Steven, have a tool.
No. I mean, I have to say that I agree with Rima in terms of, because I look at value proposition as something that also comes from within the organization in terms of what do you want to do in the first place. So what tools help you to do is to put them in a particular structure. But you have to be clear as an entrepreneur when you're launching a product, what problem are you solving for the end consumer, right? So assuming it's I don't know, it's a new brand of pesticide, for argument's sake, that you developed. I'm just throwing an example here. You have to be clear, why is this better than anything else that's in the market? What is it going to do for the customer, right? And then there's some tools now that you can use to optimize that or to put that in a particular language. And some of the tools, at least that I use, and I don't think they're just only about the value proposition, is the business model canvas, right? And why I like the business model canvas is because it paints the entire picture of your business, has your customers on one frame, has your value proposition on the other frame, has the channels, has the how you're going to be reaching your customers in this case. And when you're looking at all these different pieces together, you're trying to ask yourself, so if I say that my customers are, I don't know, large scale farmers, but my value proposition is, I don't know, that we are very convenient in terms of how we deliver our products. Am I in sync in terms of what those kinds of customers want out of a product? And maybe the biggest thing they want is the quality and maybe the price. I don't know. Right, so those potentially could be your value proposition aspect. So I like that as a tool. The other tool that I like, and I'm going to paste this, is the Blue Ocean strategy canvas. And the reason why I like the Blue Ocean strategy canvas, and I'll paste some links around just as we're speaking, is because rather than also looking at value proposition from an internal perspective, where you're just saying, what do I want to do and so forth, it forces you as an innovator to first of all do some research in terms of who's out there and what are they doing, right? So once you figure out who's out there and what they're doing, you ask yourself, what's the value proposition they're offering to customers already? And then it forces you now to ask yourself, then what is it that I'm going to be doing that is different from what everybody else in the market is doing, right? Sometimes, I mean, if you come into the market and you're offering the same thing that the market is getting from other players, it can be a bit harder for you. I mean, in fact, the book just says you'll be in a red ocean where customers can't differentiate between you and someone else. Right? Of course, these are strategy tools, but they have an element around focusing on this idea of your value proposition that you want to offer to customers.
Okay, so again, I hear you guys say that when I think of my research or my innovation, I need to start thinking of it as a business, and the business that's going to go to market and put this out there. So I need to know. To be clear and to be sure that I'm solving a real world problem, more than just as a researcher, but also that I am doing it in a unique way, different from others, correct? And these tools help me, or would help any researcher going to commercialize, to be able to do that, to zero in on the value proposition using the value proposition canvas, the business model canvas, or the Blue Ocean strategy canvas. And I see the links coming on there. Thank you, Stephen. Steve, for this one, as somebody who is on the money side of things, how should an innovator communicate a strong value proposition as, if they're already in the market or if they're heading towards commercialization? What are some tips from you?
That's a good question. So I think for investors, at the end of the day, what sells the most is what the customers are saying, and if you can see the product or the service flying off the shelf. Because often, if it's flying off the shelf, there's a good reason. You must have a good value proposition. And so you can then work backwards and say, the reason why that's the case is because Asgates are very clear in terms of our price. Asgates are very clear in terms of our route to market, and also like the convenience of getting our product. Our product is very easy for us to use, and so forth. I'd like to just use maybe just a random example. Let's pick, I don't know whether people still use Facebook in this day and age, or M-Pesa. Let's use M-Pesa. I think M-Pesa is a good example. If you launch an M-Pesa-like product today, and within, I don't know, in fact, I haven't gotten the best product. Let me drop that, ChatGPT, right? I think that's a new phenomenon, just in case you don't know about that one. It's an AI that's being used to do all manner of things. If someone asks you, if I'm an investor, and someone comes to me and tells me, we want you to invest in ChatGPT, unfortunately, I won't get that opportunity. Now it's in the billions of dollars in terms of value. But if you for me, then what would be the key value proposition to invest in that? And number one, I can see that flying off the shelf, because I think they say within a week or something, they've gotten to 1 million users of the platform that they've created. So that tells me something. Then number two, I walk in and I try to use a product myself as an investor, and I say, let me just jump on these products and try and use it. If I use it, I see it's very easy, it's very intuitive. I can solve so many problems with it. I can see the use cases. I can see why customers would want to use that product, right? And for me, that's how then value proposition is communicated. It's not so much what you tell me, because as an entrepreneur, you can tell me whatever story you want to. But for me, I want to see traction in the market, that customers are trying to do whatever it is. I want to try. I want to get some research maybe from you, where you tell me, we've run some pilot phase with 100 farmers, and our results have been 1, 2, 3, right? Our product is able to do this it's three times more effective than what is there in the market. Our product is much cheaper because of 1, 2, 3. We've made 100 pitches, we've gotten conversions of 50%. So for me, that convinces me much more than what you just put on your pitch deck. So the evidence, and back to what Rima said, the research, the evidence that you're able to show, if it's a product I can't use directly, for me is more useful than what you tell me. And I like using products that, when you're looking at entrepreneurs, I like using the products myself just to get a sense. I may not be the target market, but then I start asking myself, so if this product is for my mother, for argument's sake, who's a small holder farmer, how would she perceive it? I would go home and tell her, have you heard of this thing? How would you use it, and so forth? So I'll do my own customer testing also, just to get a sense of how that looks like. So if you bring the evidence, I'll look at that evidence. Thanks.
Rima, as a marketer, for you, it's about the clients and the partners, maybe not so much the funders. So I'm new, I have this, what I think is a great product. How do I communicate strongly? Say I might not have the evidence of it. How do I communicate that I have good value to clients or to potential partners?
Right. Strangely enough, businesses do come to us when they're also trying to pitch to the investors, because what happens is they have to be that investor readiness, right? So one of the things that we do and we say is test your hypothesis. So if someone has come to us with just a theory, and they say, look, I have got a great idea, and I want to do this, and I have no evidence, and I have no information, and I have no customers, but have an idea of what kind of customer I want. And so I always say that go to that kind of potential customer, even if your product is not ready at the moment, and find out from them, that person, would they be able to purchase? So we always say, ask open-minded, open-ended questions, not a yes or no question. So getting that discovery, so it's called the customer discovery section. So even as marketing, what we do is try to get to understand who the customer is. See, in marketing, if we are just doing ads, promotion is only just one part of marketing, then we're not doing any due diligence. We don't know. We're kind of like spraying and praying, hoping that something sticks somewhere, and you think that that person is going to be the one who's going to purchase from you. Like, oh, hopefully, let's just do this. Let's let's do a billboard, so for example, with my idea. So we always say that, look, try and get to understand who that customer is, which is why it's very important for us to understand who the target audience is. And sometimes what happens, and we've seen that even in the past, is the kind of idea you have of a customer is probably not the customer that is going to purchase from you. Or you have created a completely different segment of customers who are now coming to purchase from you. And why they're purchasing from you is completely different reason from what you initially thought that is going to be the reasons why someone is going to purchase from you. So we find that customer is at the center of our marketing. And so in marketing, we always say, go and talk to the customer, go and understand who those people are, even if they have never purchased from you before. So go to a potential customer or create that segment. Now you're like, oh, okay. I went to these people and this is what they said. And they're like, no, but they don't want this because at this particular price point, that doesn't work for them. Or is it something else? Is it because it's not available immediately? Or do I have to wait for a year cycle or 6 month cycle for me to get something? Whereas I needed something immediately, which is what our market has become like, anything that we want, we just want it now. I want anything I want it now. If you don't give it to me now, then I don't want it. I will go somewhere else where I can actually get something like that, right? So that's one aspect of it. And the second aspect of it is creating that uniqueness. You have competitors most likely in your market, right? Probably going to the same target audience. And it's very possible that it's something similar to what is already currently in the market. But what makes you stand out more than your competitors? All right, what is that uniqueness? So there's the value proposition, and then there's a unique value proposition. So you want to get to that uniqueness. And sometimes uniqueness is not necessarily the buzzwords that people are saying. Quality, affordability, cheap. Because a lot of people think that if I put cheap in my value proposition, it'll be perfect, but probably not. It's sometimes something else that actually has triggered a customer to come to you. So again, I cannot stress enough that you need to understand who your target audience is, who your customer is, what are the segments, and you'll be surprised sometimes your value proposition to a particular segment is different from the value proposition to another different kind of a segment. Same way that we say that there's a company one and there's a product one and so on.
Okay, Rima, I want to just bring out a question that Ruth Wanjau has asked, all this related to what you're saying about putting the client at the center. And I guess she's talking about in the innovation process, at what point do you bring the consumer? Before the final product or after?
I would do before. I would do definitely before, because again, you're testing your hypothesis, you're testing. So it's what we call when we're doing like sort of customer discovery, the customer stages of discovery, right? So when you're going from into product market fit, what we call the product market fit. In the product market fit, you've got where you're trying to understand, if I brought this kind of a product or service into the market, would that be of any use, to my customer, the customer that I think. So I have an assumption. So I made an assumption that this is the kind of person that's going to actually purchase from me. And then I go out into the market, what we call boots on the ground, go and actually find out from those people who will be able to purchase from me or not. So you're validating. Once you've done that, you want to validate whether that particular product or service is going to be purchased by this particular product customer, or that segment, that hypothesis that you made, right? So that assumption that you made. So I would definitely recommend that if you have something completely new or something that's different, try and test it in the market even before you start producing it. And then you do like a prototype, get that tested again, see if it's working out. Do you need to make any tweaks, etc.? Then now go into market with something that is more relevant to the market or your target audience. Rather than doing something and you put all this money into it, you've invested into it, you've got no data. And maybe Stephen will say that if you got no data, very, very likely I am not going to give you all the money that you want. I might give you for validation first, and then you come back once you have that validated. Then now you can create your customers and build your business.
Stephen, rather than go back to the question about at which point to do it, there is a question here, and I want to ask it to you in two parts. One is to reiterate, is there a rule of thumb when it comes to the characteristics of a good value proposition? And two, what are the loopholes to avoid when designing a value proposition?
Thanks, Sonia. I'm still thinking about that question of the rule of thumb for a good value proposition, and it's I'm not so sure I know of any, right?
Okay.
Maybe what to say is to try and define some of the things you should think about when you're putting your value proposition, so that maybe it fits into a rule of thumb or something for you, what you need to be thinking about. And I'd say that there's a couple of things, and the questions are related. The first is, don't have 10 value propositions, right? You might say that this is our value propositions that we sort of like, but focus on 1, 2, or 3, because what happens is that with any value proposition you put out, it affects the rest of your business. So if your value proposition, for argument's sake, for product is best quality, right? As guys are known for quality, whenever you buy our products, it's the best quality. Then you can't also be the cheapest, right? Because then how do you sort of like do both? Because there's something that goes into getting a quality product into the market in this case, right? So you can't also be the cheapest. So that idea of just making sure that there's a bit of synchrony between what the value proposition is and what the business is doing will just end up forcing you to live in a particular way. And so that's why my point was, don't have 10 of them, because if you have 10 of them, you're going to feel like you're getting pulled into different direction as a business, and you're not able to live that ethos of what your value proposition is. Something else to avoid is this idea, and I mentioned it, and I'm just going to repeat it. Having value proposition which is just there on paper, right? The team members don't know what the value proposition is. The customers, they just know of it, but when they come to interact with products, they don't see that, right? And so just leave it all the way from the beginning to the top. So if you're going to be the most convenient, please make sure that your rider knows that if it's a product that has to be delivered, for argument's sake, the rider who delivers understands that us guys sell ourselves on convenience. So when you're going to deliver a product, don't leave it to the gate man. Drop it at the front door, right? If you're going to deliver a product and it's a product that is for, I don't know, a big corporate and so forth, make sure that you sit down. There's someone who comes in and explains exactly how that's going to be used and so forth. Because those are the small things that then people say that, wow, when these guys say that they're really convenient, they actually mean it, because once you get their products, there's an explainer video, there's someone who explains to you, there's someone who calls you after that and tells you, hey, have you tried to use the product? Do you have any challenges? So make sure that you leave it end to end, right? And I guess that's where Rima then comes in terms of just walking you through some of those ideas of how do you leave that from an end-to-end perspective. And then I think I'll leave it at those two, because I think those are, for me, the most important points.
Thank you, Stephen. So I'd like Rima to add on to this. So
yeah, but I was just going to stress on what Stephen said. In marketing, one of the biggest things that we mention, and I speak to this to my teams as well as my business, the companies that we work for, is that if you have something out there in your social media or your billboards or your marketing material and so on that you say you're going to do, but the team doesn't know about it, really bad, because you get a call and you're like, oh, by the way, you guys have this offer, so you what, and then you're like, what offer? Oh, let me get back to you, and so the biggest marketing, or the first one you need to communicate with, is internally, because your team are the ones who actually live this. And so that's really, really important. So what Stephen is talking about, the end-to-end, the internal is more important to start off with, so that when you're sending it out there as communication, then now you're living it internally as well, and you're delivering for your customers. So yeah, I just wanted to stress that on the same point.
And Sonia, please, just to add on that, and I use this example a lot, make sure that your operations team is not running after your marketing team. And what I mean by that is,
to go? So it's not a relay. What is it? They are going together?
No. What I mean by, they're going together, right? And when I say running after, I mean that the marketing team has put out these sleek adverts of what your product looks like, and it's this sophisticated high-end thing. And then your operations team are just struggling to make that reality work, right? Because the dissonance is so huge when the customer comes in. You see all these manner of hotels, and I use the hotel example again, where you get the brochure, it's like, my goodness, I can't wait to go for this holiday in this hotel. And then you land there and you're just like, almost go to the reception in the photo and say, I want this. Where did this go?
I want to ask you both something that Harold asked us at the beginning as a way to begin to wrap up. And I'll start with the version first. Is a value proposition a one statement? Is it a sentence? Is it a paragraph? And to whom is the value proposition targeted? Rima, do you want to go first?
Sure. And I mentioned this earlier as well. It depends on who this value proposition is for. It's a statement. And we would definitely recommend that you do a nice short statement, not a massive paragraph, because that if you go into a paragraph, it means you're actually explaining or, creating a blog around what your value proposition is. But your statement is a very nice, summarized, simple statement. And like I mentioned, could be different for your customer. So we have the company value proposition that is very different for the customer. And the one that you do for your investor would be very different as well. Because your investor is not looking for the same thing that your customer is. Your investor is probably looking for what the value that they want is, how much more, how fast are we going to gain something back? How much penetration of market, how big is your audience? Is it viable? Is it going to be, bringing back money for you as well as money for me, etc. But for your customer, it's like my pain point. I have a pain point as a customer. Are you, sort of reading into it? And I'll give you a really simple example very quickly, is Zoom. When Zoom started, or somewhere close to when they started, one of their value proposition is flawless video, clear audio, instant sharing, because those are the things that were lacking in the market. It was what was making them unique. Why would you use them versus then there was a Skype? I don't think anyone uses Skype anymore. I don't know if you do. Right. But then now if you look at their value proposition, and I went onto their platform just yesterday, now their value proposition has evolved, because we're not talking about the same thing again. We're not competing with the likes of Skype. So what are we talking about? Their value proposition now is, I'm going to create that one platform for you to create. I'm going to create that one platform for you to innovate. I'm creating that one platform for you to connect with people. And so they have completely changed their value proposition, and it's okay that you can actually have very simple value propositions. And where I would recommend, again, to put that value proposition is right on the first fold of your website, so people know why they're coming to you.
Okay. Any additional thoughts, Stephen, as we bring this to a close?
I think for me, over and above the statement, and I like the idea of having that on your website, having that on your pitch deck when you're going out to customers and so forth. The other thing is just to make sure that you're living that, right? Because the value proposition, it's not something that we just say we have this as a, but it's not something we create in the boardroom and then sit back and say, now we have a value proposition, now let's go back and work. It's something that once we've said that that's our value proposition, and the entire team, from the sales team, the operations team, etc., then follow through to make sure that that is what the customer experiences. Yeah, on a day-to-day when they use our product, our service, that is what they're experiencing, and that's what they're getting. And the moment you do that, then you have a winning proposition, because people just keep referring over and over, right? And when I was thinking about, I think part of the people ask, what's the value proposition, and someone says, what's the difference between KQ and Jumbo Jet? If you're a Kenyan, for instance, you can tell them what it is. You can tell them one of them sort of like is a very discount airline, just gets it where it's supposed to go. One of them has, I guess, on the good days, had some premium feel to it, so to say. And you can tell what's the difference. If someone tells you what's the difference between an Apple or a Lenovo and an Acer laptop, like, I don't think the companies came to you with a statement and told you that this is our value proposition. It's just you use the products, you interacted with the products, and you're just like, okay, I see what the difference is. Just there, it's marked in your. So you need to get customers to that point after you created that statement.
Okay. This is the line that I hate, that time is not with us, but allow me to recap and then see if there's anything that we missed based on the questions that we asked. So the value proposition is a statement, a brief one. I will even add maybe 1 or 2 lines at best. It can be more than one for different targets to your customer, your client, to your investors, or any other partner that you have. So you can have several, but generally saying the same thing. And that there are tools available to guide those of us who are starting up in terms of writing a value proposition that we've shared in the webinar chat. So the value proposition canvas, the business model canvas, the blue ocean strategy canvas, and the importance. So in terms of some rules of thumbs and loopholes to avoid is to be sure that internally within your company, within your organization, it's understood across the team, across different units. And it is not only on paper, and that it's feedback. There should be a feedback mechanism with your clients all through the process. And I think, Rima, the question you answered about you do it before, you do it during, you do it constantly. So there's a feedback loop with your customers to always be sure that you are meeting the promise that you made. And so I hope even for those who came in later and asked the questions about, customer feedback, rule of thumb, who is it to, are now duly responded to. I can give you both a minute to, give your last thoughts to those who are here, who are researchers, innovators, startups, on a value proposition. And again, starting with you, Rima, your 30-second last thoughts.
I was going to say Stephen can go first because I started. But it's okay. I can go first because I'm mic'd at the moment, so it's fine. It's important, and I think I can see a question in the Q&A for customer feedback. And Sonia, you've mentioned that a few times, what we call reputation marketing. So you can have, and again, there's something else somebody else said as well, with regards to misleading or false value propositions. Very easy to catch, guys, because your reputation rides on it. Your business, your brand, your reputation is very, very important. And in marketing, there's something that we call, and we have a solution around it called reputation marketing. So in reputation marketing, we are constantly asking our customers to give us feedback and reviews about what are we doing? Are we doing it right? Are we not doing it right? And what we also see that our potential customers prefer listening to the review of their peers rather than what I am saying to you. So I could have a value proposition, but my reviews are saying something different. So Google Business Profile, you've got your reviews saying something different, or whatever is on the Google Business Profile is actually reiterating what your value proposition is. So there again is your reputation. Your reputation is what your customers say about you, not what you say about yourself.
Thank you, Rima. What your customers say about you. All right, Stephen.
I think my part is going to be something I've already spoken about, and it's just two statements. One is leave your value proposition, and then 2 is make it end to end. This idea that the entire team just needs to run through, and the value proposition be communicated to them so that they're pushing it to the customer. And I think the moment you do that, you'll see, this virtual cycle where customers keep referring, and then even you go to investors to pitch, you can show the numbers. You can even answer why are customers coming to you. You can try to replicate that to ensure that you have growth in the organization. So leave it and then make it end to end.
Okay, thank you. I'm told there's one more question from Nadir, but I don't seem to see it on the chat or on the Q&A. So apologies, Nadir.
I did respond to that, Sonia.
Okay, misleading. Thank you, Rima. Thank you both for your insights and sharing your experiences. To those who've joined us, thank you for the questions. I certainly feel, okay, no more lies, offer your value proposition, even personally. I think it applies to us in life. This is who I am, what I am, and live it. It is live, it is constant. So thank you all for your time this morning, and I will hand this back to Maureen.
Thank you so much. I think we can all clap and appreciate our panelists. Feel free to clap or rather through an emoji. So we really are happy. I think it's been a very informative session. Thank you for their participants. And thank you, Stephen, for sharing your insights. Thank you, Rima, for sharing your insights also from a marketing perspective. I think that was really eye-opening. And I believe Sonia has already done a recap, but maybe I'll just highlight two things that were important or I thought were very important. I think it's just that notion of, what is a value proposition? It's a statement, first and foremost. Number two, it's supposed to be a short statement, so 1 or 2 sentences, Number three, what should it talk about? It's that one thing or those two things that your business, that your innovation is responding to. And I think importantly, it's not what you want to say, it's what the customers are going to say about what your innovation is talking about. So I think with that, so thank you very much. Just to highlight the next steps, we will have another webinar session, and just allow me to share my screen quickly for 1 or 2 minutes. Just to highlight the webinars that are coming up, they're very informative. In the next session, we'll have innovator journey scaling in Africa. What are some of the, how does a journey look like when you're trying to scale your innovation in Africa? That's scheduled for the 16th of March. Then we'll have a product market fit webinar. Then we'll have a funding landscape webinar. And interestingly, we'll also have how do you tip negotiations in your favor? Then we'll have from a male perspective, how do you measure success through this commercialization journey? That's in July. Then we'll have understanding the business model, the business modeling canvas, then optimizing digital marketing. We all know that we're in the digital market space, the digital era. So we need to use the tools that we have to better our innovations or to grow our innovations or take our innovations to the market. And then we'll also deal with investor expectation. And last but not least, we'll have a corporate governance. So thank you very much. I'll stop sharing my screen, and I believe there's no other burning question. And I feel like we can close the webinar session. We have saved you 4 minutes of your time. So have a great afternoon, have a great day, have a great week. See you next month. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maureen.